On the morning of the 13th of April 2026, Washington sent a stern message. The blockade of ships entering and leaving Iranian ports officially began. But in the Strait of Hormuz, the most dangerous question isn't the declarations on paper. It lies here. Why did the US Navy only now begin the underwater clearing phase? Tensions in this strait are not new. Risks of mines, choked shipping lanes, and the potential for collisions with Iran had been accumulating for some time. But only when oil tankers began diverting course, energy markets were shaken, and freedom of navigation faced the threat of being broken in real life, did the US feel compelled to act more decisively. And the paradox lies in the very force deployed first. The two modern destroyers of the US Navy were not ships designed specifically for minesweeping. They are the shield, the command center, the protective layer, for a far more dangerous operation unfolding beneath the surface. In other words, if even the destroyer has to enter now, it means the Hormuz problem has entered a completely different phase. The US says it is reopening freedom of navigation. Iran insists the strait remains under its control. But amidst stalled shipping lanes, invisible minefields, and a battlefield where the greatest threat is invisible to the naked eye, the real question is, what has made Washington unable to wait any longer? And why has the fight to reopen Hormuz only truly begun now? The 2-week ceasefire that the world had hoped for was merely a false calm before the storm. On the night of April 12, marathon negotiations in Islamabad officially collapsed. What was once considered a diplomatic solution is now just a pile of rubble, pushing the risk of war back almost immediately. Washington's patience ran out. CENTCOM issued a shocking statement. The US would block all cargo ships from entering and leaving Iranian ports. But note this detail. They were not blocking international shipping through the strait. This was a calculated maritime coercion. The US was trying to perform a political surgery, tightening its economic grip on Tehran while still keeping the world's oil lifeline intact. Tehran's reaction was clear. Any US military vessel approaching the strait would be considered a violation of the ceasefire. Iran maintained its position that it would still allow civilian ships to pass through, but only if they complied with Iranian-imposed regulations. This is the trap. Iran is turning the Strait of Hormuz into a disputed sovereign territory, where any misstep could become the pretext for triggering a full-scale attack. The world didn't wait for gunfire to start panicking. As soon as negotiations collapsed, the oil market reacted as if war had already begun. The oil tankers diverting to avoid Hormuz is the most vivid proof. The crisis is no longer just political assumptions. It has become a fiercely real commercial battle. Every hour, the strait is threatened. Billions of dollars are evaporating from the global supply chain. The US is being pushed into a corner. They are forced to act quickly to reassure the markets and assert freedom of navigation. But in this geopolitical game, the faster you act, the more likely you are to fall into the escalation trap set by your opponent. Time is no longer Washington's friend. In conventional military thinking, if the enemy lays mines, you clear them. It's a purely tactical action. Detect, neutralize, and open a safe corridor. But at Hormuz, Washington realized that if they focused solely on clearing the surface, they would forever be chasing after the cards Iran had played. Look at the numbers. Detecting a digitally engineered magnetic mine hidden beneath the mud and sand takes hours, even days. But laying them takes only seconds from a cheap speedboat. If the US only chose to clear mines, they were wasting millions of dollars in resources for temporary safety. More importantly, mine clearing doesn't take away Iran's ability to create uncertainty. Tehran can recreate fear whenever it wants. The danger at Hormuz is a multi-layered, integrated system. Reuters described the IRGC as not just using mines, they used the presence of fast attack boats and shore-based missiles to directly threaten the minesweepers, which were poorly defended. The US understood that. You can't clear the ground while the enemy is still standing on high ground with a rock in hand. If you only clear mines, you're only clearing a route. If you block them in reverse, you're striking directly at the control mechanism behind that system. So, what was Washington's real goal? Did they want to open the way for oil tankers to pass through? Or did they want to seize the conditions for the strait to be open to traffic? The answer lies in the shift from dealing with the consequences to controlling the cause. The US stopped searching for mines and started searching for the key holder. The US didn't begin by clearing the entire Strait of Hormuz. That was impossible in terms of time and resources. The objective of Phase 1 was more modest, but far more important: establishing a preliminary, safe corridor. This wasn't about restoring traffic, but about creating a military landing pad where the minesweeping system could begin operating without being immediately destroyed. Imagine the destroyers as a giant shield-bearing vessel. They enter the channel at an extremely slow speed, their radars at maximum power. Their mission is to suppress the enemy's morale. The US must maintain a strong enough presence to protect the small mine-hunting vessels about to be deployed, but at the same time avoid acting too aggressively as a full-scale attack. Every movement of the destroyers at this point is not just tactical, but a political signal. If the US ships focus their radar on an IRGC stronghold for too long, the fragile ceasefire could crumble in an instant. Once the destroyer was firmly established in its position, the system's senses began to be unleashed. Helicopters flew low to scan the area, and underwater scanning platforms began sending back the first data streams. This is when the tactical space became extremely limited. The strait was only 21 miles wide, and every American movement was under the intense scrutiny of hundreds of Iranian guns from islands like Qeshm or Hormuz. You were working in a glass cage, where every step was examined under a microscope by the enemy. The paradox of Phase 1 was that the US had more than enough power to eliminate the onshore threats, but they were not allowed to do so. They were locked down by the rules of the political game. The US needed to clear mines, but the mine clearing action was interpreted by Iran as a violation of sovereignty. As a result, the sailors on the destroyer had to work under extreme tension, ready to fight but with maximum restraint. This is no longer a rehearsal. This is a real battle of wits. There's a reality that Pentagon strategists have had to acknowledge. You can use every advanced technology to clear every cubic millimeter of water from the Strait of Hormuz. But that doesn't mean traffic will resume. Because Hormuz isn't just a geographical coordinate, it's a vital economic entity. Reuters pointed out that any action there always involves two overlapping layers: military and commercial. If the US only addresses the military layer by clearing mines, they've only solved 50% of the problem. The other 50% lies in market sentiment. As long as shipping companies and insurance companies keep asking who really controls this route, Hormuz will remain locked down by the fear of an unpredictable resurgence from Iran. If the US only clears the way, Iran can still sow chaos with a single radio statement or a sporadic missile test. The security that the US offered at the time was only temporary and fragile. It wasn't strong enough to bring the flow of oil, which accounts for 1/5 of global flow, back to its previous pace. This is why Washington chose a bigger and more ruthless step. They understood that to keep the Hormuz open long term, they couldn't just be dedicated cleaners. They had to become law enforcers. Instead of promising the world that the road will be clean, the US is demonstrating to the world that Iran is no longer capable of soiling that road. It's a shift from protecting a route to controlling a sphere of influence. Finding new targets is only half the battle. Neutralizing them is when the entire American system is pushed to its limits. At Hormuz, there is no one-size-fits-all solution for all types of mines. Each mine is a unique problem, and even a small mistake in the solution can trigger a catastrophe. The Pentagon has a vast arsenal of tools, but each comes with a trade-off. Robot-based methods of placing explosive charges are incredibly precise, but torturously slow. Meanwhile, using false signals to detonate and drill massive numbers might be faster, but it depends entirely on understanding the algorithm of the mine. The real combat at Hormuz is far different from field exercises. Iran doesn't lay mines in a single way. They mix older anchor mines with newer magnetic mines, smart mines that can count passing ships before detonating. The real combat at Hormuz is far different from field exercises. If the minefield is a mixed matrix, the time it takes to open the channel will be exponentially prolonged. What is precise is too slow to save the economy, while what is fast leaves too much of a margin of error to ensure the safety of the destroyers. Here, the psychological pressure, human tension, becomes intense. The crews must work in a state of no room for error. The commander faces a cruel dilemma. Increase the speed of opening the channel to reduce economic losses, or maintain absolute certainty to protect the lives of the sailors. The longer the operation lasts, the more real the risks of Iran violating the ceasefire with a drone attack from the coast becomes. Look at this picture. A $2 billion warship, equipped with Aegis radar capable of tracking hundreds of targets simultaneously, is sitting motionless in treacherous waters. Why? Because in the Hormuz, the USS Michael Murphy's role isn't to crouch down and search for individual mines. It's the guardian angel, a steel shield for the entire operational system. The dedicated mine hunting platforms are the weakest links. The wooden Avenger-class ships are virtually defenseless. Low-flying mine-hunting helicopters are easy targets for shoulder-fired missiles. And the underwater robots are completely blind to attacks from the surface. Without the protection of the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the entire mine-hunting chain would be destroyed in minutes by Iranian proxy forces. Destroyers are here to ensure that the weaker platforms have enough time and space to do their most important job. The destroyer's strength at Hormuz doesn't lie in how many missiles it fires. It lies in maintaining a safe umbrella. It's the command center, processing terabytes of data from seabed and surface sensors and satellites to create a comprehensive battlefield picture. Their mission is to keep the pace of the operation uninterrupted. As long as the destroyer remains operational, the mine-clearing system continues to function. If the destroyer withdraws, the access to Hormuz will be permanently closed. To open Hormuz, the US doesn't need a single hero. They need a well-functioning operational ecosystem. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyers are the glue that holds everything together. This is the pinnacle of strategic logic, using the most expensive platforms to protect the most rudimentary and slowest moving components. When the first mines were cleared, a new problem arose, one far more difficult and risky. It was no longer about finding a block of steel at the bottom of the water, but about proving to the world that the Strait of Hormuz was open, while Iran's guns were still pointed at the throat of the flow of trade. Washington is caught in a paradox of its own making. On the one hand, it must prove itself a guardian of freedom of navigation by restoring international traffic. On the other hand, it is enforcing a strict blockade on all ships entering and leaving Iranian ports. How can you declare the strait free when you are the one deciding who can go and who must stop? This is an extremely thin red line. Every ship stopped by the US is a pretext for Tehran to claim that the US is destroying peace in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is not silent. Tehran and the IRGC are constantly sending the message: the strait is not under US control. They understood that if even a single US military vessel deviated from the mine-clearing corridor by just a few nautical miles, they would consider it an act of aggression and a violation of the ceasefire. The problem now went far beyond mine-clearing technology. It became a story of a military operation locked down by symbols of sovereignty and the risk of escalation beyond control. This is the point viewers need to realize. The US may win technically in mine clearing, but they could lose strategically if they cannot convince shipping companies that this corridor is sustainably safe. If Iran continues its close presence, insurance companies will still have doubts. And if an explosion occurs right now, the entire effort of the Guardian Angel system will be wasted. In the world of systems warfare, a 99% success rate is a failure. Because in Hormuz, a 1% error isn't measured by data, but by the wreckage of the ship. Observe this mechanism. Modern mines don't need to touch the ship. They create a giant bubble of air, lifting tens of thousands of tons of steel into the air before suddenly dropping it. The steel structure bends like a leaf. The propulsion system is torn apart. Water floods the engine compartments. In an instant, a symbol of global trade is transformed into a fiery pile of scrap metal. This isn't a scare tactic. This is the ultimate test of all American logic. Every satellite sensor, every AI robot scanning process, and every decision by CENTCOM commanders is aimed at preventing one thing: letting a mine slip through. If that mine explodes, the entire message of America controls the Strait will be changed. It proves that even the most expensive defense system on the planet can be defeated by a crude explosive costing a few $1,000s. The consequences will be immediate and irreversible. It will be a crisis of confidence. No shipping company will dare trust Washington's promises anymore. The US will be forced to retaliate against Iran to save face, triggering a full-scale war we're trying to avoid. And from there, oil prices will no longer jump by percentages. They will explode exponentially. A single hit to a US ship or an oil tanker under US protection would change the status of the Hormuz from a contest for control to the abyss of a world war. After all our analysis, a stark truth emerges. In the Strait of Hormuz, advantage is not determined by displacement, the number of VLS missile launchers, or atmospheric radar systems. In these narrow waters, the brute force of large ships has reached its limit. The real advantage in Hormuz belongs to whoever can maintain the pace of the operation without disrupting the peace line. The US may have overwhelming firepower, but their victory lies not in destroying the enemy, but in protecting the weakest links: mine-scanning robots, low-flying helicopters, and most importantly, the trust of commercial shipping companies. Victory here is not a spectacular explosion, but in silence. A day without a single explosion beneath the ships is Washington's greatest victory. The two American destroyers present at Hormuz are not there to perform a show of muscle power. They're doing the quietest, slowest, and most easily overlooked job in naval warfare, shielding a route that the entire planet depends on, while they themselves cannot be sure whether that route will still be open tomorrow. Because at Hormuz, the ultimate question is not how strong the US Navy is. The question is, can a billion-dollar system overcome the uncertainty of a few $1,000 mine to keep the world from plunging into the abyss of a new war?